The COVID-19 pandemic changed the way people live all over the world, learning to come together and help each other like never before. That's not always the case, however. In some cases, the pandemic brought out the worst in people. A viral video seen across the country of a Florida woman coughing in a cancer patient's face helped put her in jail for 29 days. After several hours of questions and testimony in the sentencing hearing of Miss Debra Jo Hunter from Fernandina Beach, DeVal County Court Judge James Ruth laid down her sentence, despite a plea agreement in August that outlines only probation with conditions. Hunter's husband, children, family, and friends were there to testify in her defense. All claimed Hunter's heart was immense, that she was a kind and caring woman, and that she was heartbroken over her decision to cough on cancer patient Heather Sprague. Once Hunter's family gave their testimony, Heather Sprague narrated the story of the events that took place only months after her brain tumor surgery. According to Sprague, Hunter went on a tirade in a Pier 1 store. She brought in a broken item demanding the store personnel replace it with curse words and menacing innuendo. Several children were in the area who witnessed the expletive-filled rant. As Hunter stood at the customer service counter, Sprague pulled out her cell phone and began to record the situation. When Hunter noticed she was being filmed, her attention turned on Sprague. Sprague listened to Hunter's 4-page statement in the courtroom before telling the judge that she thought Hunter's main concern was the impact of the viral video's notoriety on her family. She called the statement very self-absorbed with no concern for her or her family. That was not a knee-jerk reaction of an overprotective mama bear. It was rooted in privilege and entitlement and targeted to exploit and attack my vulnerability with an assumption of immunity of consequences. At this point in the proceedings, Judge Ruth watched the 40-second viral video clip and expelled a soft, "Oh my," when he saw cursing and a rude hand gesture before the coughing began. He began his statement by saying the tirade took longer than he thought and that he added a term of incarceration to the plea agreement. Before ending the proceedings, he publicly chastised Hunter's letter to him and her testimony, saying he believed them to be focusing solely on herself and her family. He lamented that Hunter seemed only concerned with not going to the country club and the nasty Facebook messages her family receiving and showed no signs of concern for Sprague. I have yet to see any expression on her regret about the impact it had. According to the arrest warrant, Sprague went into Pier 1 to find Hunter ranting. When she began recording the incident, Hunter spotted her and directed her vitriol in her direction. She threw her hands up in a rude gesture, saying, "How about that? You want me to post it for you too?" Hunter stands in front of the customer service desk with her arms crossed, shifting her weight from one foot to the next. Her young daughter hovers in the background among the racks of merchandise, popping in and out of camera view. Hunter then turns toward the camera, asks if she should just walk up and cough on Sprague, and then does it. Stepping entirely into the camera frame, the sound of coughing is suddenly loud before Hunter walks back to the service desk.
I think I'll get real close to you and cough on you then. How's that?
According to her Facebook post, Sprague has a compromised immune system stemming from brain tumor surgery. Sprague did not speak or react to Hunter, and she was wearing a mask during the incident but began to feel sick soon after. 4 days later, she called the police to report the incident. In her statement to the judge, Hunter, her attorneys, and prosecutor, Sprague said she felt spit hit her face when she was coughed on and had been living in fear ever since. She said the act perpetrated on her was calculated to attack me at my weakest point, physically and psychologically. Sprague is a mom of 10 kids. She said she lived in constant fear that she exposed her children to illness and spent days searching for somewhere to be tested for coronavirus. She eventually tested negative. Sprague stated that Hunter's only intent could have been to transmit illness or impart a fear of some transmission. She said she worried for the safety of her household and how she could possibly isolate in a house of 12 people if she were infected. One of Hunter's neighbors testified on her behalf early in the proceedings, saying Hunter seemed deeply remorseful and that she was facing immense collateral damage from the fallout of what she called dreadful moments. 6 others spoke out in Hunter's defense during the hearing via Zoom, including a retired Jacksonville, Florida police lieutenant who said he had never seen Hunter act that way before, and it was completely out of her character. During Hunter's video testimony, she wore a mask as she cried and sniffed, saying that the media frenzy caused by the video had many people leaving her threatening comments and that her friends had ostracized her and her family. As a family, we collectively avoid anyone we recognize for fear they might know. My kids shouldn't have to pay the price for my mistake. Hunter's plea agreement with the state attorney's office includes withholding adjudication and 6 months probation with conditions. Hunter is also required to attend anger management classes. She is also required to write a letter of apology to Heather Sprague and reimburse her for $150 for the coronavirus test. In a similar instance, the San Francisco woman has pleaded not guilty to multiple charges stemming from an incident where she ripped off an Uber driver's mask and coughed in his face. Arna Kimiai was caught on a video that has since gone viral attacking her Uber driver when he ended her ride because she wouldn't wear a mask. The video shows Arna hitting the Uber driver, pulling off his mask, coughing on him, and grabbing his phone.
24-year-old Arna Kimiai is the woman on the right grabbing the driver's cell phone.
She eventually turned herself into the authorities and was read her 4 charges that included actions against the transportation driver and violations of COVID-19 related health code. Another girl in the Uber was Arna's friend, Malaysia King. She is seen spraying pepper spray into the car toward the driver and was later apprehended in Las Vegas, Nevada. King agreed to be transported back to San Francisco to face her charges, which include the use of a caustic chemical, conspiracy, and violation of the health and safety code, among others. The two will appear together in court. The Uber driver reported the pickup of 3 females at San Bruno Avenue at 12:45 p.m. Only a few moments later, he reported stopping the ride because none of the passengers were wearing masks, which is when the altercation and the video began. Eventually, the 3 women agreed to exit the car, but pepper sprayed the interior before running away. In another case, using something her attorneys are calling a COVID defense, Michelle Boat was found guilty in the death of her husband's girlfriend, Tracy Mondabau. The decision took only 45 minutes. In Pella, Iowa, police found Mondabau with multiple wounds inside her car at her apartment complex. Michelle Boat confessed to the crime, but she said it was because of her stress levels over the pandemic. I just snapped. I grabbed the blade and I just stabbed her. Then I dropped it. The prosecution disputed the claim, stating the action was planned and intentional. They claim Michelle stalked Mondabau for approximately an hour before surprising her in the car while she was still wearing her seatbelt. The motives behind Michelle Boat's actions are some of the oldest in history: jealousy and obsession. Michelle's husband, Nicholas Boat, had recently left her to move in with Mondabau. Residents of the apartment complex called police when they heard raised voices outside. Police arrived to find that Mondabau had already died from the stabs to her heart. According to the arrest warrant, witnesses described the attacker shouting, "He don't belong to you." Michelle was immediately identified as a potential person of interest because Tracy had a no-contact order against her from a previous experience. When police arrived to question her, they found DNA evidence in her car and on a pair of rubber gloves found inside her house. She readily admitted her guilt, but said the stress of isolation and being alone during the COVID-19 pandemic had driven her to her actions. She was found guilty of first-degree homicide and is still awaiting sentencing. However, Due to mandatory sentencing laws in the state of Iowa, she is looking at least life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get fresh content on all the hottest news stories weekly.